Vivian Sue slid the insurance policy across the coffee table toward her mother-in-law. The air in the living room vacuum-sealed itself. 3 seconds ago, Margaret Lynn had been studying the document with an expression that screamed finally, "This daughter-in-law is learning." 3 seconds later, when her reading glasses landed on the beneficiary line, Vivian Sue, her face cycled through beige, crimson, and finally a shade of purple usually reserved for eggplants that had been left in the sun too long. "Vivian! Are you wishing me dead?" Margaret's shriek nearly rattled the chandelier off its chain. Meanwhile, Jason Goose sat on the couch across the room, headphones clamped over his ears, fingers flying across a game controller with the kind of focus that could only mean he had physically relocated to another dimension. Vivian smiled. Warm. Polite. The kind of smile you'd give a difficult client. But her eyes were borrowed from the inside of a freezer. "Mom, I'm just following your example," she said, tucking the policy back into her folder with deliberate care. "When you put that fertility tonic in my soup, weren't you also wishing me well? This is my gift to you. You should be grateful." Margaret's hand shot up, finger trembling like a leaf in a hurricane. Vivian watched her mother-in-law's face collapse into something unrecognizable and felt the last strand of a rope that had been fraying for 3 years finally snap. 3 years ago, she'd walked away from a 7-figure salary at a Shanghai investment bank to follow Jason to this second-tier city. She thought she was running toward love. What she got was a live-in housekeeper position with 0 pay and a full-time, ever-vigilant critic who never took a day off. Too much salt. No baby news. Spending her son's money on skincare. Margaret's attacks came from every angle, a tactical airstrike disguised as motherly concern. The worst had been last week. Margaret had appeared at her door with a bowl of black, bubbling sludge she called a fertility remedy. Vivian had only leaned in for a sniff and her internal organs had staged a united protest. The smell was what you'd get if you slow-cooked an entire Chinese pharmacy for 24 hours and reduced it to a single, weaponized serving. She'd politely declined. Margaret had flipped. The teacup jumped 3 times on the table. Tears, accusations of selfishness, a full theatrical performance about how the Gu family line would die with Vivian, complete with sobbing that suggested Vivian had personally set fire to the family tree. And Jason? He'd sat on the couch playing video games, headphones cemented to his head, sealed in his own private universe. A decorative object. An expensive piece of furniture that occasionally breathed. That night, Vivian had lain awake until dawn, staring at a hairline crack in the ceiling, and realized she'd been a fool. She'd given up everything for this man, and all she'd gotten in return was a badge that said, "Free labor," and a mother-in-law who treated her like a defective appliance. She decided she was done. But she wasn't filing for divorce. Divorce was too easy, that was damage control, not revenge. She wanted Margaret to feel every single thing she'd made Vivian feel, amplified and returned with interest. The opportunity came faster than expected. Sunday morning, 7 o'clock. The doorbell rang. Vivian was curled on the couch scrolling through her phone and didn't bother looking up. Jason was still dead to the world in the bedroom. She shuffled to the door and opened it to find Margaret on the doorstep, one hand clutching grocery bags, the other gripping plastic sacks full of mysterious supplements. "What took you so long?" Margaret pushed past her, scanning the living room like a border patrol agent. "This layer of dust on the coffee table, what do you even do all day sitting at home?" Vivian mentally flipped her off. She'd been up until 2 in the morning working on a proposal, but to this woman, that apparently counted as sitting around doing nothing. "Mom, have a seat." Vivian plastered on her brightest smile, the kind that made her own skin crawl. "Since you're here, there's something I want to tell you." Margaret shot her a suspicious look. Something was off about this girl today. But she settled into the armchair anyway, chin lifted, waiting. "I've been reflecting," Vivian said. "You're always telling me I spend too much money. So I've prepared a gift for you. The word gift hit Margaret like a switch. Her face softened. She accepted the document Vivian handed her, put on her reading glasses, scanned the first few lines. Her expression shifted from anticipation to confusion. Life insurance. You bought me life insurance. Exactly. Vivian settled into the seat across from her, hands folded on her knee, posture impeccable. Top tier. Annual premium of $20,000. And the beneficiary. She paused, savoring the flicker of approval that had just begun to bloom on Margaret's face. Is me. Margaret's smile froze mid-contraction. Excuse me. The beneficiary, Vivian repeated, her voice light and airy, as if discussing weekend plans. If anything happens to you, the payout comes to me. I've done the math. The coverage is several times the premium. A solid investment. You're always teaching me to be financially prudent. I thought you'd approve. 5 full seconds of silence. Margaret's face cycled through its entire emotional spectrum, settling on a shade somewhere between liver and bruised plum. She slapped the document onto the table. Her fingertips were shaking. Vivian. You're cursing me to death. Mom, of course not. Vivian blinked, the picture of innocence. I'm planning for our family's future. Think about it, you're getting older. What if you slip in the shower? What if a car doesn't stop at the crosswalk? What if you choke on your food? I'm not wishing it on you, I'm just saying, if something did happen, at least we'd have a safety net. Better than losing both you and the money, right? Her smile never wavered. Her tone was the same one she used for quarterly reports. Margaret's chest tightened. She opened her mouth, closed it, opened it again. Nothing came out. Besides, Vivian added, twisting the knife with surgical precision, you're always pushing us to have kids. Jason and I discussed it, after you're gone, that money can go toward the child's education. Grandmother's gift to her grandchild. 2 birds, 1 stone. Margaret made a sound like a dying kettle. She shot up from the chair, clutching her chest. Her finger, now trembling so violently it looked like it might detach, pointed at Vivian. You. Mom, please don't get worked up. Vivian hurried over, all concern, guiding her mother-in-law back toward the seat. I know you're touched, but your health comes first. If you collapse right now, the insurance hasn't even passed the waiting period yet. We wouldn't get a thing. Margaret's eyes nearly ejected from their sockets. If I collapse right now, it won't pay out. Was she supposed to schedule her own death for a convenient date? Vivian. Margaret finally found her voice, loud enough to rattle the light fixtures. What is your angle here? The volume finally penetrated the bedroom door. Jason shuffled out, hair exploding in every direction, eyes barely open. What's going on? Jason, thank God. Margaret grabbed her son's arm like a drowning woman seizing driftwood. Look at what your wife did. She bought me life insurance and made herself the beneficiary. She can't wait for me to die. Jason squinted at Vivian, his face settling into its default expression of mild irritation. What did you do now? What did you do now? The now said it all. Vivian counted the beats. 3 years of marriage, 3 years of his mother starting fights, and his first reflex was always, without exception, to blame her. Nothing, she said with a shrug. I bought your mom life insurance. What's the problem? A daughter-in-law buying insurance for her mother-in-law, naming herself as beneficiary, is that against the rules? Jason paused. Technically, she had a point. The policyholder paid the premium, they could name whoever they wanted as beneficiary. But who in their right mind sits across from their mother-in-law and explains, in graphic detail, that the insurance pays out when she dies? Listen to what she's saying. Margaret stomped her foot. She told me not to die now because the waiting period hasn't passed. She's literally praying for my death. Vivian tilted her head, a faint smile playing at the corner of her mouth. Mom, that's called concern. If you hear a curse, maybe that says more about what's in your head than what's in my mouth. Checkmate. Margaret's face went black. She'd spent 56 years on this earth being the one who left people speechless. Never once had the shoe been on the other foot. And Vivian had done it with logic, every word technically correct, impossible to refute, yet together forming a blade that cut straight through. Fine. 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 Each fine landed like a hammer blow. Vivian, you've grown some teeth. Jason, you handle this. She threw the grenade into her son's lap. Jason rubbed his temples, looking from his mother to his wife. He selected his weapon of choice, the one he'd mastered over a lifetime of avoiding conflict. All right. It's too early for this. He waved his hand like he was shooing away flies. Mom, Vivian meant well. Don't overthink it. Vivian, ease up a bit. A nothing statement. A non-position. A perfectly useless contribution to the situation. Vivian watched him, and whatever warmth she'd been holding onto in some forgotten corner of her heart, she felt it congeal and drop away. Margaret was clearly unsatisfied, but she knew her son, waiting for him to defend her honor was like waiting for a brick to swim. She shot Vivian a look that could curdle milk and headed for the kitchen, groceries in tow. I'm making soup. Don't get in my way. The tone suggested the kitchen was her private domain. Vivian's house, Vivian's stove, but Margaret acted like she was the landlady and Vivian was just a tenant who'd overstayed her welcome. Not today. Vivian followed her into the kitchen, leaning against the doorframe with studied casualness. Margaret pulled a dressed chicken from her bag, then bags of herbs, angelica, cotinopsis, astragalus, and finally, a packet of suspiciously colored powder. What's that? Vivian nodded toward the powder. Margaret ignored her, tossing ingredients into the clay pot. Vivian stepped closer. The smell hit her, the same acrid, bitter stench as last week's fertility remedy. Mom, who's that soup for? You. Margaret didn't turn around. I had a specialist formulate it. Regulates your system. Promotes conception. You refused to drink it last time, so this time I'm making it into a soup. You can't refuse this. Vivian watched the dark liquid begin to roil in the pot, and she laughed. Fine. I'll drink it. She pushed off from the doorframe. But since you're so concerned about my health, let me return the favor. Remember your last checkup. The doctor said at your age, you need to watch your blood pressure and cholesterol. I've prepared something for you too. Margaret turned, wary. Vivian disappeared for 2 minutes and returned with a glass of liquid the color of liquefied lawn. What is that? Margaret took a step back. Kale, celery, and bitter melon juice. Lowers blood pressure and cholesterol. Vivian extended the glass with both hands, smiling broadly. All natural, no sugar, no additives. One gulp and your arteries will thank you. Margaret eyed the green abomination. The vegetal stench, bitter melon's acrid edge, celery's grassy punch, hit her nostrils and she recoiled. I'm not drinking that. Mom. Vivian's smile cooled by a degree. You made me soup. I made you juice. That's called reciprocity. If you won't drink mine, I can't very well drink yours, can I? Impeccable logic. Margaret found herself trapped between two equally unpalatable options, choke down what looked like poison or forfeit the moral high ground for her precious fertility soup. Lose-lose. The kitchen fell silent except for the bubbling of the pot. Vivian stood there, glass extended, arm steady, smile steady, waiting. She'd spent 5 years in investment banking. She knew about holding positions. Patience. Using the opponent's own momentum against them. Margaret's entire strategy was emotional extortion disguised as generosity. I do things for you, so you have to accept everything I do, and against Vivian's toolkit, it was child's play. Finally, Margaret grabbed the glass, squeezed her eyes shut, and took a gulp. One gulp. Her entire body seized. The triad of bitter melon's sharpness, celery's green bite, and kale's grassy funk detonated inside her mouth simultaneously. Her face collapsed like origami, tears forcing themselves from the corners of her eyes. Horrible. She nearly hurled the glass across the room. Mom, good medicine tastes bitter. Vivian reached over and turned the soup's flame down a notch. Isn't that what you always tell me? Funny how it doesn't apply when it's your turn. Margaret choked on her own words. This was just the appetizer. Vivian pulled out her phone, tapped the screen, and slid it across the counter. Juice alone won't cut it. I've signed you up for a personal training program. One-on-one coaching, specifically designed for women your age. Margaret looked down. The screen displayed a payment confirmation, Silver Age Fat Burn Camp. $8,800. Are you insane? Her voice cracked. I never asked for this. I decided for you. Vivian's voice was unhurried, reasonable. You always say what's mine is yours. Well, what's yours is mine too. I care about your health the same way you care about my fertility. It's what family does for each other, right? The logic missile struck Margaret's ideological foundation and blew a hole straight through it. She stood frozen, mouth opening and closing, fish on dry land. Her entire life strategy had been built on this family is family principle. She could interfere, criticize, demand, because that's what family did. But it had never occurred to her that someone might use the same weapon against her. I'm not going, she finally managed. That's fine, Mom. Vivian pocketed her phone, still smiling. The money's already spent and I've booked the sessions. If you don't go, you're wasting almost $9,000. And you're always telling me not to waste money. You wouldn't want to set a bad example, would you? Margaret felt her temples throbbing, her blood pressure climbing in real time. She gripped the counter, breathing heavily. 56 years old. She'd never met an opponent like this, sweet on the surface, every word wrapped in a smile, but underneath the smile, a blade that found every single nerve she had. Fine. She ground it out through her teeth. I'll go. But you're finishing every last drop of that soup. Her calculation was simple, she could just sit through a gym session, but she'd make sure Vivian swallowed every drop of that soup. A partial victory. Vivian glanced at the bubbling black liquid and the corner of her mouth twitched. Deal. She pulled 2 bowls from the cabinet, ladled soup into both, and set one in front of Margaret, keeping the other for herself. Mom, good things are meant to be shared. Your soup, you first. Margaret stared. That's for you. I know. But you said it's good. Shouldn't good things be shared? She raised her own bowl to her lips but didn't drink, just waited. Margaret stared at the bowl in front of her. She knew exactly what was in that soup. Besides the herbs, there was that powder. The miracle fertility formula she'd paid a fortune for from a folk healer. The healer had warned the effects were powerful. Side effects included diarrhea. He'd called it detox. She did not want to detox. What's wrong, Mom? Vivian's voice cut through her hesitation. Did you put something in this soup that shouldn't be there? The accusation landed like a slap. Margaret's face flamed red. That's ridiculous. Then drink. You first, I'll follow. If you won't even drink your own soup, how am I supposed to trust it? Margaret was cornered. She grabbed the bowl, squeezed her eyes shut, and swallowed a mouthful. The liquid was bitter, gamey, with a strange aftertaste she couldn't identify. It hit her stomach like a lead weight. She choked it down and slammed the bowl onto the counter. Satisfied? Vivian applauded softly. Impressive, Mom. Then she picked up her own bowl, walked to the sink, and poured it all down the drain. Margaret's eyes bulged. You. What? Vivian turned, the picture of surprise. I just remembered I'm on antibiotics. Can't mix them with herbal medicine. It could be dangerous. You wouldn't want anything to happen to me, would you? Margaret's entire body vibrated with fury, but before she could formulate a response, her stomach seized. The miracle formula had arrived. Something invisible clamped down on her intestines like a fist. Her face drained of color. She doubled over, clutching her abdomen. Mom? Mom, what's wrong? Vivian was at her side instantly, voice dripping with concern. Is it the soup? I told you, these folk remedies are dangerous. You planned this. Margaret gasped, cold sweat beading on her forehead. Planned what? Vivian guided her toward the bathroom, lowering her voice so only Margaret could hear. Mom, this is what you call karma. When you put laxatives in my soup, did you ever think you'd be the one drinking it? Margaret's head snapped up. The shock in her eyes momentarily overpowered the pain. Vivian smiled back. Gentle. Warm. Her eyes were February ice. Mom, you taught me, what goes around comes around. Margaret spent the entire morning in the bathroom. The fertility formula was more potent than she'd expected. By noon, her legs had turned to rubber, her face the color of old paper. Vivian was the perfect nurse, checking on her every 30 minutes, asking if she needed water, if she needed medicine, caring and solicitous. But Margaret had seen beneath the mask now. Every knock on the door made her flinch. Jason, oblivious as ever, hadn't even noticed his mother had been in the bathroom for 4 hours. Headphones on, gaming away. It wasn't until he emerged for lunch and found Margaret collapsed on the couch that he showed any sign of human awareness. Mom, what happened to you? Margaret opened her mouth. Your wife did this to me. But the words died. How could she explain? That she'd put laxatives in the soup and drank it herself. That Vivian had forced her to drink horrible green juice. That Vivian had signed her up for a $9,000 gym membership. Every single accusation would expose her own wrongdoing. Nothing. She gritted her teeth. Stomach bug. Vivian appeared from the kitchen with a bowl of congee. Mom, I made you some porridge. Settles the stomach. Drink it while it's hot. Earnest expression. Clear eyes. Soft voice. The perfect filial daughter-in-law. Margaret stared at the bowl, uncertainty warring with hunger. She didn't know if this one was dose 2, but at this point, she needed to eat something. She accepted the bowl and took small, cautious sips. Jason watched the scene and nodded approvingly. See? This is good. Family getting along. Vivian smiled at him, but inside she was thinking, your definition of getting along is you not having to deal with your mother's bullshit. Now that I'm handling it, everything's peaceful. Fine. I'll set the standard for peace from now on. In the afternoon, Margaret started packing to leave. She needed to retreat, regroup. Vivian blocked the door. Mom, don't rush off. I've booked your first training session for 10 tomorrow morning. The coach said the first session is critical. You really should be there. Margaret stiffened. I'm not going. Cancel it. Can't cancel, Mom. It's a promotional package, non-refundable. If you don't go, that's nearly $9,000 down the drain. She glanced meaningfully at Jason. Jason caught the bait. $9,000. For what? A personal training program for mom. I noticed she's been complaining about back pain lately. Exercise would be good for her. At her age, health is everything, don't you think? She emphasized at her age just enough to make Jason nod. Mom, she's right. You should get some exercise. The money's already spent, you should go. Margaret opened her mouth, but no objection came. What was she going to say? That she was afraid of sweating in front of strangers? In front of her son, she always maintained the facade of being tough and capable. Fine. One syllable ground through her teeth. Vivian's smile brightened. Great. I'll pick you up tomorrow morning. After Margaret left, Jason actually complimented Vivian. You handled things well today. You were really patient with my mom. Vivian looked up from the coffee table she was wiping down. Her expression was unreadable. Was I? Yeah. You used to fight with her all the time. Today was much smoother. Progress. He patted her shoulder. Keep it up. Vivian nodded and continued wiping the table, a smile too small for him to notice curling at the corner of her mouth. Jason. You think I was being patient. You don't even know that from today on, the version of your mother you've known for 30 years and the version of your wife you married 3 years ago are both gone. But don't worry. This game has only just begun. That night, Vivian lay in bed and opened a folder on her phone. 3 years' worth of documentation, every cruel word, every unreasonable demand, every slight. Date, time, place. She'd named it, The Reckoning List. She added a new line. Round 1, insurance plus green juice plus gym. Margaret's losses, $20,000 policy activated, taste buds destroyed, forced enrollment in fat burn camp. My losses, 0. She smiled at the entry. Then she opened WeChat and messaged a former colleague from her investment banking days, someone who transitioned into private investigation. Need you to run a background check on someone. Margaret Lynn. 56. Lives at Evergreen Garden, South District. I need her full social network, financial status, and anything else useful. Budget's unlimited. The reply came instantly, got it. 1 week. Vivian put her phone down and looked at the man sleeping beside her, moonlight catching the face she'd once loved. Now it was just a face. She remembered the first time Margaret had criticized her. She'd gone to Jason, hurt, expecting support. His reply, my mom's just like that. Let it go. So she let it go. Then it got worse. She complained again. His reply, why do you always have a problem with my mom? So she stopped complaining. Then Margaret called her a barren hen in front of the whole family. Vivian finally exploded. That night, Jason's first words were, can you stop being so selfish? That's my mother. That was the moment she understood. In his world, she wasn't even second place. First place was his mother. Second was himself. Third was video games. She might have been fourth or fifth, somewhere around the same tier as the robot vacuum. But she didn't file for divorce. Not because she still loved him, but because she knew the outcome. She'd be branded, the difficult one, the daughter-in-law who couldn't get along with her mother-in-law. Margaret would play the martyr in front of every relative. Jason would find another wife within 3 months, and the cycle would repeat. Why should that be her fate? She'd taken 3 years of abuse. Why should she be the one to leave with nothing while they got off scot-free? No. She wasn't leaving. She was going to turn this house upside down, make Margaret taste every single ounce of the bitterness she'd fed Vivian for 3 years, make Jason watch his perfect mother reveal herself for what she really was. She rolled over, closed her eyes, and slept better than she had in 3 years. 8:30 the next morning. Vivian pulled up to Evergreen Garden. Margaret came down dragging her feet, color still bad. "Morning, Mom." Vivian beamed, holding the car door open. "Sleep well." Margaret grunted and got in. She'd bought a new tracksuit for the occasion, tags still on. Vivian noted this silently. Her mother-in-law had bought new clothes just to save face in front of strangers. This woman was easy to read. 20 minutes later, they pulled up to the gym. Silver Age Fat Burn Camp occupied the entire third floor. Vivian escorted Margaret inside where several other women were already warming up, lively, energetic, in great shape. The trainer was a 20-something Adonis with muscles that had muscles. "Mrs. Lin, welcome. I'm Coach Sho, your personal trainer. We'll start with a fitness assessment." Before Margaret could object, she was on the body composition scale. The numbers appeared on the screen. Coach Sho's expression flickered for a fraction of a second. "Mrs. Lin, your body fat percentage is somewhat elevated. Visceral fat above average. Basal metabolic rate." Margaret's face darkened with each item. The other women gathered around, offering commentary. "Oh, I started the same way, you'll get there, stick with it and you'll see results." Margaret, who'd built her life on being respectable in front of others, was now being publicly evaluated. It was worse than the diarrhea. Vivian didn't follow. She ordered a coffee and watched from the lounge. The next hour was Margaret's longest on record. Coach Sho was all smiles and absolute brutality, burpees, mountain climbers, kettlebell swings. By the end, Margaret was drenched, hair flying in every direction, face a masterpiece of suffering. The highlight was the stretching session. When Coach Sho helped her stretch her hamstrings, Margaret produced a sound that belonged in a slaughterhouse. Every head in the gym turned. Vivian took a long sip of her coffee and smiled. After it was over, Margaret crawled out of the gym. Stairs were an ordeal. Vivian supported her, murmuring, "You did great, Mom," while barely containing her glee. "I'm not coming tomorrow," Margaret rasped. "Not tomorrow, not ever." "Mom, you can't. The program builds on itself. If you skip now, you'll lose all the progress." Coach said consistency is key. "I said I'm not coming." Vivian didn't argue. She drove quietly. At a red light, she spoke, her tone conversational. "Mom, I was looking into something yesterday. How much did you pay that folk healer?" $2,800, was it?" The air in the car solidified. Margaret's body went rigid. She turned to stare at Vivian, and for the first time, something like fear flickered in her eyes. "How do you know that?" "Just a guess. But I could verify. Jason told me your pension just covers your basics." "So where did the $2,800 come from? Did you get it from Jason?" She paused, glancing sideways. "Or do you have other income you haven't told him about?" Margaret's face shifted. She did have other income. She'd lent her savings to a distant relative for private lending, collecting interest each month. Jason didn't know. She'd kept it as a secret nest egg. But private lending was a gray area, and the relative's business had been slipping. Payments had been late for 2 months. If Vivian exposed this, if Jason found out his mother had been hiding money while complaining about his wife's spending, the image Margaret had cultivated for 30 years would shatter. "What do you want?" Margaret's voice was dry. "I don't want anything." Vivian's tone was still light. "I just think you'll get real benefits from the gym. You keep going, I'll keep quiet. You stop, well, maybe Jason and I should discuss who's really wasting money in this family." She was smiling. She sounded like she was asking about the weather. But Margaret heard every barb, every one landing exactly where it hurt. Seconds passed. "I'll go," Margaret finally said. "Wonderful. I knew you were reasonable, Mom." Vivian drove Margaret home, adding at the curb, "Oh, and Mom, you've got a yoga class on Wednesday. Wear something loose." Margaret stood watching the taillights disappear around the corner, a cold feeling spreading through her chest. 56 years, and she'd never met anyone like this. Sweet on the surface. A knife underneath. And she had the unsettling sense that this was only the beginning. Vivian drove away feeling lighter than she had in years. Jazz on the stereo, her fingers tapping the steering wheel. Her phone buzzed. The investigator. Basic file on Margaret Lynn complete. You'll find this interesting. 2 years ago, she joined a senior wealth management group. Invested $150,000 total. Current losses exceed $100,000. Her family is unaware. Vivian pulled over, heart racing. Margaret's finances were even more interesting than she'd imagined. The private lending, the secret savings, and now this, an investment scheme hemorrhaging money. And the organizer of the scheme was named Jangwo Wang, who happened to be a distant cousin of Margaret's dance partner. She replied, "Dig deeper on Jangwo Wang." Everything. The car pulled back into traffic. Sunlight streamed through the sunroof. Vivian's smile was sharp and satisfied. "Margaret. You think the gym was my endgame? You have no idea what a woman with 5 years of investment banking experience really means by targeted strategy." The next week was the most regular Margaret's life had ever been. Every morning at 7, Vivian's WeChat message arrived with the weather and a cheerful exercise reminder. Margaret flinched every time. Monday was gym day. Coach Joe increased the weights. Margaret couldn't even hold chopsticks at dinner. Her hand trembled so badly she dropped them 3 times. When her husband David asked what was wrong, Vivian answered for her, "She's really dedicated to her fitness program." Tuesday, a delivery arrived, a complete home gym setup. Yoga mat, resistance bands, dumbbells, foam rollers, and a full-length mirror. Vivian's message, "For your practice at home. The mirror's for your form." Margaret stared at the mirror that would capture every wrinkle in high definition. Wednesday, yoga. The instructor, a soft-voiced young woman, had hands of steel and bent Margaret's rigid limbs into shapes that defied human anatomy. Lying on the mat, gasping, surrounded by peers who all seemed to be handling it fine, Margaret felt more humiliated than she'd ever been. Thursday, Vivian appeared at the door with a folder. "Mom, Coach sent me your health report. I need to sign off as family." Margaret opened the folder. Red exclamation marks next to every category: elevated, high risk. The last page was a diet plan. Allowed foods: boiled chicken breast, steamed fish, boiled vegetables, whole wheat bread, skim milk. Forbidden: braised pork, sweet and sour ribs, fried chicken, cake, milk tea, and every dessert in existence. Margaret turned green. "I'm not signing." "Mom, this isn't negotiable. Coach says your condition requires immediate intervention. If you don't follow this plan, I'll have to show the full results to Jason. You know his grandmother had heart disease. Family history plus these numbers, how do you think Jason will react?" Margaret signed. "There's one more thing," Vivian added as she put the folder away. "I've arranged with the supermarket near your place. They'll share your shopping list with me. If you buy anything you're not supposed to, I'll know." Margaret nearly passed out. "By what right?" "By the right of caring about you, Mom." Vivian smiled, smoothing her skirt. "You have that fitness assessment on Monday. Rest up." She left Margaret on the couch, shaking with rage. Margaret had never been this powerless in her life. She reached for her phone to call Jason, then paused. What would she say? That her daughter-in-law signed her up for a gym and a diet plan? Anyone who heard that would think she was ungrateful. For the first time, she felt truly cornered. Vivian's every move was above reproach, every attack disguised as kindness. It was like being smothered with a pillow, not dead, but suffocating, each breath harder than the last. But Margaret wasn't one to surrender. She regrouped. If she couldn't win a direct fight, she'd shift to guerrilla warfare. Her ace was the family network. At every dinner, every holiday, she was the suffering mother who raised her son single-handedly, and Vivian was just an outsider. If she marshaled the relatives, she'd win. She called her sister May. May lived in the neighboring city, 3 years younger and cut from the same cloth. She was the family gossip hub, the unofficial information superhighway. May, I can't take this anymore. Margaret's voice cracked on cue. What happened? Is Jason's wife causing trouble again? May got the full, heavily edited version, everything that had happened, minus the part where Margaret had dosed her own soup with laxatives. She painted Vivian as a tyrant who forced her to drink foul juices, dragged her to the gym, and surveilled her grocery shopping like a prison warden. That's outrageous. What does Jason say? Jason's useless. He's completely under her thumb. Don't worry, sis. I'll handle this. May was already formulating a plan. Your birthday's next weekend, right? I'll organize a big family gathering at your place. With everyone watching, let's see if she dares to act up. Margaret's eyes lit up. Her birthday. Of course. She'd be the star of the show, surrounded by her network of allies, all ready to tear into Vivian if she stepped out of line. Perfect. May, set it up. The more people, the better. She hung up and smiled, already picturing it, the entire family gathered, Margaret at the center of the room, Vivian cowering in a corner as Margaret delivered her annual, concerned grandmother, speech about grandchildren. Some things never change, she muttered to herself. Meanwhile, Vivian already knew. Her investigator was efficient. Within 30 minutes of May's call, Vivian had the full picture of the birthday plan. Saturday, next week. Evergreen Garden. Extended family gathering. Vivian studied her phone screen and smiled. Margaret, you just built the stage for me. She opened the reckoning list and added new items under Phase 2. She'd memorized Margaret's character in front of every relative, the loving mother who sacrificed everything, the family matriarch, the long-suffering elder who only wanted to guide her misguided daughter-in-law back to the righteous path. The performance had run for years. But performances collapse when the facts break through. Her phone buzzed one last time, Jangwo Wang background complete. He's got a record, arrested for illegal fundraising 3 years ago, changed his name and started over. His senior wealth management group is a textbook Ponzi scheme. And here's the interesting part, May joined the group last month. Vivian blinked, then burst out laughing. This was pure, undiluted karma. She'd been worried about how to play her hand, and now the universe had dealt her the perfect set of cards. She messaged back, keep watching. Let me know if anything changes. Then she called Jason. Jason, next Saturday's mom's birthday. Are you aware? He hesitated. I almost forgot. What about it? I want to throw her a party. Invite the whole family. Make it a real celebration. At her age, we should make every year count. His voice went warm. Vivian, that's really thoughtful. Mom and I haven't always gotten along, but I want to change that. I want to honor her. She laid it on thick. It worked. Jason was all enthusiasm. Great idea. Let me know what you need. I'll cover it. Call it my birthday gift to Mom. She hung up, the warmth in her voice draining instantly from her face. Jason, you think I'm doing this for you? I'm doing this so you can be here when the curtain falls on your mother's 30-year performance. You're the most important audience member in this show. Without your front row seat, none of this matters. She pulled up her contacts and found Nina Shun, Jason's cousin, the only relative who'd ever shown Vivian any kindness. Last Chinese New Year, when Margaret had ragged on Vivian for spending money, Nina had murmured under her breath, "She earns her own money, she can spend it however she wants." She'd been shut down immediately, but Vivian remembered. She messaged Nina, "Are you coming to your aunt's birthday party next Saturday?" Nina replied instantly, "Ugh, my mom's dragging me. Every family gathering is just an excuse to set me up with someone." Vivian smiled. She appreciated Nina's bluntness. "You're studying journalism, right? I have a new action camera and I need someone who knows how to use it properly. Can you come a little early so I can show you?" Nina, action camera. At a birthday party. Vivian, I want to document mom's fitness progress. A keepsake. You can help me capture the whole thing. Nina agreed, followed by an enthusiastic emoji. Nina, I'm sorry for using you a little. But you'll understand after Saturday. Vivian went to her study and opened the safe. Inside were 3 years' worth of evidence, bank statements, transfer records, chat screenshots, and a newly printed investigation report on Jiangwo Wang. She organized them in a folder and wrote one line on the tab. 3 years. Time to settle. Saturday morning, 7 o'clock. Vivian was up. Shower, makeup, hair. She chose a slate blue shirt dress with a slim belt, the kind that said, "I mean business," without screaming it. Deep rose lipstick. Jason rolled over. "You're up early. Your mother's birthday." "I'm heading over to help." He grunted and rolled back to sleep. Vivian retrieved the folder from the bank's safety deposit box and drove to Evergreen Garden. Margaret was just getting up when she arrived. "Mom, happy birthday." A bouquet of flowers, a beautifully wrapped box. Margaret opened it cautiously, a silk scarf, delicate pattern, obviously expensive. She checked the tag, about 2,000. Humph. Not bad. Her tone was still grudging, but her face had softened. Vivian tied on an apron and produced an elaborate breakfast in under half an hour. Margaret ate, suspicious but hungry. By noon, the relatives started arriving. May came first with fruit, hugging Margaret and scanning Vivian with undisguised hostility. Vivian smiled through it, serving tea. Nina came with her mother Sharon, carrying Vivian's camera in her backpack. Vivian found an excuse to walk her to the balcony and spent 2 minutes showing her how to use it. Wide angle. Capture everyone. And don't stop recording, no matter what. Nina's eyes gleamed. Got it. The rest arrived, Daniel and Chunmei with their kids, and finally Melanie, the eldest of the 3 Lin sisters, who'd been a vice principal before retiring. She walked in with a curt nod, no present, and sat down to scroll her phone. Jason was last, holding a red velvet cake, his mother's favorite. Vivian kissed him on the cheek. "Thanks for coming, babe." He patted her arm. "You've done all the work." The party kicked off. Vivian had prepared an elaborate spread, steamed sea bass, lion's head meatballs, garlic prawns, 8 treasure duck. The relatives heaped praise on her cooking. Halfway through the meal, May steered the conversation. "Sis, I hear you've been working out. At your age? What's the point?" Margaret sighed dramatically. "It was Jason's wife's idea. Says it's for my health. She's got me running around like I'm training for the Olympics." May's cue came like clockwork. "Oh, you need to be careful at your age. Vivian, you shouldn't push her so hard. She's not 20 anymore." Vivian set down her chopsticks and dabbed her mouth. "May's right, exercise should be appropriate for one's age. That's exactly why I found a program designed for seniors. The trainer says mom's got a good foundation, she just needs to build consistency. It's the best thing for her cardiovascular health." Flawless logic, delivered with warmth. May had no counter. Margaret tried again. Fine, but do you have to monitor my grocery shopping too? I'm in my 50s, I can't even buy a piece of braised pork without you knowing. Chun-Mei put down her chopsticks. Vivian, are you controlling what your mother-in-law eats? Vivian didn't flinch. Not controlling, helping. The trainer's diet plan is based on her physical condition. I just help her stick to it. As a daughter-in-law, I can't knowingly ignore a health risk, can I? She turned to Margaret with a smile. Mom, I know you love braised pork. Once your numbers are better, I'll make it for you myself. The energy shifted. In everyone's eyes, Vivian was now the caring daughter-in-law, and Margaret's complaints were starting to sound like petulance. Jason stepped in to smooth things over. All right, it's Mom's birthday. Let's just enjoy the food. Margaret's smile was stiff. She'd lost this round. She pivoted. To be honest, she said, picking at her fish, I don't care about what I eat or how much I exercise. I just want to hold a grandchild before I'm too old. There it was. Vivian felt her internal temperature drop another degree. She'd been waiting for this. The grandchildren attack was Margaret's signature move, the one she deployed at every gathering for 3 years, each time suggesting Vivian was somehow broken or failing. Vivian, you've been married 3 years now, May picked up seamlessly. When are you two having kids? You're not getting any younger. Margaret piled on. Vivian, I'm saying this for your own good. You work so late every night. How can your body handle pregnancy? The neighbor's daughter-in-law just had a boy and she's younger than you. And I heard you used to make good money in Shanghai, May added. But what does that matter? A woman's priority should be family. The two sisters worked as a tag team, dragging Vivian's reputation through the mud. Jason sat beside her, silent, taking a sip of his drink, eyes fixed on the window as if he could see through to another dimension where he didn't have to hear any of this. Vivian looked at him and felt nothing. She'd held on to a sliver of hope, maybe, with everyone watching, he'd say something. Anything. Even just, we're working on it. But no. Of course not. She set down her chopsticks. Mom, I did something last week. Since everyone's here, I'd like to hear your opinion. She opened her folder and placed a piece of paper on the Lazy Susan, rotating it to Margaret. It was a copy of the insurance policy. The insured, Margaret Lynn. The policyholder, Vivian Sue. The beneficiary, Vivian Sue. I bought Mom a life insurance policy. Annual premium, $20,000. Beneficiary is me. She says this means I want her dead. I'm asking everyone here tonight, was I wrong? 5 full seconds of dead silence. May snatched up the paper, scanned it, and went pale. Vivian, what kind of message is this? Naming yourself as beneficiary, it's like you're waiting for her to die. Vivian smiled at her. That smile was unsettling in its calm. May, let me ask you something. I pay for the policy. The payout goes to my husband and our future children. Isn't that money ultimately staying within the Gu family? And Mom always says I'm family. So what's the problem with naming family as the beneficiary? Checkmate. If May said there was a problem, she'd be admitting Margaret had never really accepted Vivian as family. If she said there wasn't a problem, then Margaret's complaints were baseless. Margaret froze, color draining and flooding her face in rapid succession. Vivian, that's taking it a little too far, May tried. May. Vivian's voice had shifted. Gone was the sweet daughter-in-law. In its place was the woman who'd negotiated billion-dollar deals. You borrowed $50,000 from me 2 years ago. Said you'd pay it back in 3 months. It's been 2.5 years. When are you paying me back? May's face locked. I have the transfer records, Vivian said, producing another sheet from the folder. Date, amount, account number. Do you want me to show everyone? I never said I wouldn't pay you back. And I never said you did. I'm just clearing up accounts while everyone's here. You said it yourself, we're family. Family should be clear about money, right? Keeps things smooth. Again, the family logic turned against its wielders. May had no defense. Margaret slammed the table. Vivian. You're ruining my birthday on purpose. Vivian turned to her mother-in-law, her face calm and utterly unreadable. Mom, I'm just telling the truth. You taught me to be honest. You taught me to be responsible. You taught me not to be selfish. So I made the beneficiary the whole family. And now you're upset. Are you upset about what I did, or are you upset that I used your own rules against you? For the first time in her life, Margaret didn't have a single retort. Her knuckles were white on the tablecloth. She looked around the room. No one was on her side. She had one weapon left. Fine. Say what you want. Her voice cracked. You talk well, I can't match you. But don't forget, you're married to my son. This house is goo, not Sue. There it was. You're not family, in different words. Vivian waited for this moment. She smiled and tucked the insurance policy back into her folder. Good point, Mom. I should prepare for the future. Since I'll always be an outsider to you, maybe I should put that premium into other investments. If Jason ever leaves me, I'll need security. She glanced at Jason. Jason shoved a piece of braised pork in his mouth, unbothered. Just drop it. It's Mom's birthday. His tone was impatient, not at Margaret, but at Vivian. Even after his mother had just publicly declared her an outsider, his first response was to shut her up. Vivian looked at him. A faint smile crossed her face, not sad, not angry, just, done. Sure. I'll drop it. She returned to her meal, eating slowly, deliberately, as if the whole scene had nothing to do with her. The party limped along, everyone uncomfortable, conversations stilted. Just when it seemed the drama had peaked, Vivian looked up. Actually, since we're all here, let me share something I've been looking into. A case of illegal fundraising. There's a group called the Senior Wealth Management Club that's been running a Ponzi scheme for 2 years. The organizer's name is Jangwo Wang. And from what I can tell, both Mom and May are core members. Total investment, over $150,000. Another bomb. May's face drained of all color. That's ridiculous. I've never heard of any wealth management club. Vivian pulled a bank record from the folder, transfers totaling $58,000 to a company called Kongtai Health Management. Then who did you send the money to? The company's registered address is a rental unit in the suburbs. No actual operations. The actual controller is Jangwo Wang. May's lips trembled. I can spend my money however I want. Absolutely. But who did you bring with you when you joined? Vivian's gaze shifted to Margaret. The room went silent. Margaret's face was a mask of pure fear. Mom, you invested $150,000, and you've lost over $100 already. Vivian's voice was soft, almost gentle. Did you tell Jason? Did you tell Dad? Everyone turned to stare at Margaret. $150,000. For a retired woman, that wasn't pocket change. David set down his wine glass. Margaret, is this true? I don't even know this Wang person. Vivian pulled out a WeChat screenshot. There it was, Teacher Wang is brilliant. Following his advice, this retired old lady can watch her money grow. Timestamp, March 15, 2024. Margaret collapsed into her chair. Vivian stood and moved to the center of the room. Her voice was steady, her posture that of a woman who'd presented to boardrooms. Jiangwo Wang, originally Wang Defa, 53, from Anhui. Arrested for illegal fundraising in Shanghai in 2021, changed his name and resurfaced here. He uses dance groups and senior centers to recruit members, sells these health and wealth packages. It's the textbook definition of a Ponzi scheme. Over 120 known victims. Estimated total loss exceeds 8 million. The Economic Crimes Unit is already investigating. Arrests are expected in the next 3 months. The room exploded. Daniel shot to his feet. Margaret, May, what have you two gotten yourselves into? We didn't know. May was sobbing. They promised 20% annual returns, I just wanted something for retirement. And you brought your sister into it. Jason's voice cut through the noise. His face was gray. His jaw was tight. 58,000 of the money Margaret had lost was money he'd given her. She'd told him she couldn't make ends meet. He'd sent her money every month, thinking he was being a good son. It had all gone to a scam. Mom, he said, his voice shaking, you've been lying to me this whole time. Margaret broke into tears. Jason, I never meant to, I just wanted extra money for you and your family, the children you'd have. Children? Jason's voice cracked. What children? Vivian lowered her voice and leaned in close to Margaret's ear, just the two of them in that bubble of sound. Did you think about the laxatives in my soup when you lectured me about being a good daughter-in-law? Did you think about calling me a barren hen in front of all our relatives? Did you think about trying to push me out for 3 years? All I've done is give you a small fraction of what you gave me. And you're already breaking. Margaret stared at her, eyes wide. Vivian straightened up and addressed the room again. Everyone, I've already spoken with the police. 4 people like Mom and May, self-reporting and cooperating can lead to leniency. I've set up an appointment for Monday. May panicked. I didn't con anyone. You brought your sister in. She brought in 2 women from her dance group. That makes you part of the chain. If the money can't be recovered, you're both liable. The room was so quiet you could hear the clock ticking. David looked at his wife of 30 years, at her ruined makeup and red-rimmed eyes. How many more secrets are you keeping? Margaret just shook her head, unable to speak. Jason looked at his mother, sobbing in her expensive new dress, and at his wife, calm and standing like a general who'd just won a war. He didn't know who either of them were anymore. Jason. Vivian said his name. He looked up. What I did tonight, was it wrong? He couldn't answer. Then let me put it differently. What your mother did to me for 3 years, was that wrong? Still no answer. Vivian smiled. It was small, barely a movement of her lips, but the disappointment in her eyes was something you could drown in. She'd known the answer. She'd always known. Forget it. She turned toward the door. The answer doesn't matter. Vivian. Jason's chair scraped the floor. Where are you going? She paused at the threshold and looked back. No regret, no longing, just a clean, resolved finality. To take care of some things. Monday, I'm taking your mother to the station for her interview. I'll make sure she gets a good lawyer and the best possible outcome. After all, she's family. And family looks out for each other. Isn't that what she always said? She walked out, heels clicking down the hallway, then fading into the elevator's closing chime. Margaret broke into full, heaving sobs. No one reached out to comfort her. David poured himself a glass of wine, emptied it in one swallow. Chunmei tugged at Daniel's sleeve to get moving. Melanie stood, looked down at Margaret, and walked out with a single sentence, I told you that mouth of yours would be your undoing. She didn't look back. Nina quietly packed the camera away. May was still crying, alternating sobs with curses. That venomous woman. Shut up. Jason slammed the table. Everyone go home. And whatever happened here today, not a word. The family scattered. 10 minutes later, only Margaret, David, and Jason remained. Margaret had stopped sobbing, reduced to shuddering breaths. Jason looked at the half-eaten food on the table, remembering Vivian's words that morning, "I'll go over early and help." He'd thought it was her being thoughtful. Now he knew, it was a goodbye. To him. To this life. To the woman who'd swallowed 3 years of humiliation because she loved him. He pulled out his phone, ready to call her, then stopped. He didn't know what to say. Sorry. I was wrong. Stay. Every option felt empty. The problem between us was never my mother. It was that every time I had to choose, I chose not to choose you. He put the phone back in his pocket. Monday morning. Vivian's car pulled into Evergreen Garden at 8:30. Margaret was already waiting downstairs. Gray coat, hair pulled back, no makeup, looking 5 years older than she had a week ago. She got in without a word. They drove in silence. Only when they arrived did Margaret speak. Her voice was raw. "I hate you, Vivian." "I know," Vivian said, her face placid. "You took everything, my dignity, my reputation, everything I've worked for all my life, and you ground it into the ground. I can't sleep. I hate you every night." Vivian listened in silence. But, Margaret's voice caught. "The police said if you hadn't come forward with those documents, Wang would have fled the country this month. My money would have been gone, and the 2 women I brought in would be at my door with torches. They said self-reporting helped us. So, thank you. I guess I have to say that too." From Margaret's mouth, the word "thank you" sounded foreign and wrong. But Vivian could see she meant it, or at least she'd accepted the reality. "Mom, for 3 years, you put laxatives in my food. You called me useless in front of family. You told Jason I wasn't obedient. I remember all of it. I didn't report the scheme for you. I did it so other seniors wouldn't get dragged into the same hole. Whether you get your money back. I genuinely don't care. Now come on. The lawyer's already inside. Just tell them what happened." Margaret got out and followed her toward the entrance. "Vivian." Margaret stopped. "Why are you helping me?" Vivian turned and laughed, a light, unburdened laugh. "I'm not helping you. I started this, so I'm finishing it. You gave me 3 years of hell. I gave you 3 weeks of payback. Now we're square. I don't owe you anything, and you don't owe me anything either." She pushed open the doors and walked inside. The police interview lasted 3 hours. Margaret and May both cooperated, testified honestly. Their honesty and self-reporting meant they weren't charged. The money was almost all gone, but what could be recovered was at least something. Margaret was shaky-legged on the way out. Vivian handed her a bottle of water. "Drink. I'll drive you home." On the road back, Margaret watched the city blur by. "Jason called 3 times, she said quietly. I didn't pick up. I don't know what to say to him." Vivian said nothing. "I thought I was a good mother. I ran everything for him, his school, his job, even his relationship with you. I thought I'd made him into a real man. But I just made him into someone who can't even defend the woman he loves." They pulled up to Evergreen Garden. Margaret lingered in the car. "Could you and Jason still make it work?" Vivian killed the engine. Outside, leaves were starting to fall. "No. Not because of you. Because every time you hurt me, he let it happen. He's your son, so he protects you, I understand that. But I was his wife, and he never once said, 'Mom, don't talk to her like that.' A man who can't defend his own woman doesn't deserve her. Margaret nodded slowly. She pushed the door open, paused, and spoke without turning back. You're a good woman. I didn't have the sense to see it. The door clicked shut. Vivian watched the once proud figure shrink as she shuffled toward the entrance, shoulders bent, like a puppet whose strings had been snipped. She started the engine and drove away. That evening, Vivian came home to find Jason waiting at the dinner table. 4 dishes, all her favorites: sweet and sour ribs, garlic shrimp, tomato egg drop soup. The presentation wasn't pretty, but he'd tried. Home. Sit down, let's eat. He was standing, too eager, like a man trying to make up for years of silence in one meal. She sat. He served her soup, piled her plate. She tasted the ribs. Under-seasoned, but edible. Good. He was watching her. Fine. His face lit up. I'll cook for you every day from now on. Vivian set down her chopsticks. Jason, we need to talk. His face fell. I know what you're going to say. Just, let me say something first. He began to speak, words tumbling out. He knew he'd been a coward. He'd thought Vivian was strong enough to handle everything on her own. He'd thought if he just let things slide, the problems would go away. He'd been wrong. He was sorry. Vivian listened without expression. When he was done, she said quietly, I know. I thought I could change you, but I can't. And you don't need to change for me. But I can. Give me one more. You want to know when I decided to leave? He froze. It wasn't when she put laxatives in my soup. It wasn't when she called me barren in front of the family. It was that night she came with the fertility soup. She stood in my kitchen and said the Gu family line was in my hands and I was failing. And you sat there on the couch with your headphones on, pretending you couldn't hear anything. His face went pale. I lay awake that night asking myself questions. If I got pregnant, and she insisted I eat something dangerous, would you stop her? If she interfered with how I raised our child, would you stand with me? If we had a daughter and she pushed for a second child, would you say a word in my defense? Every answer was no, because you're not bad, Jason. You're just weak. And weakness hurts more than cruelty ever could. So yes, I want a divorce. The house is ours together. I'll have a lawyer draft a fair split. I won't take more than I'm owed. But I won't give you less than I should either. She stood to leave. He grabbed her from behind, arms locked around her, voice ragged. Please. Give me one chance. I'll do anything. I'll cut my mother off completely if that's what it takes. Vivian didn't fight him. She just sighed. Jason, you still don't understand. I didn't need you to cut your mother off. I needed you to stand with me when it mattered. You couldn't. You never could. She pried his fingers away, one by one. Let go. For both our sakes. She walked into the bedroom and closed the door behind her. 3 days later, they signed the divorce papers. Quiet, no fighting, no tears. 2 signatures, a bureaucratic stamp, 2 red booklets in return. Outside the courthouse, the sun was bright. Take care of yourself, Jason said. You too. She turned and walked into the light, heels clicking on the pavement with steady, certain rhythm. 1 month later, Vivian was in a new city, in a south-facing apartment with a balcony full of potted plants. She'd gone back to finance, waking at 7, working out, dressing sharp, walking into the office with every cell buzzing with purpose. The reckoning list, she'd torn to shreds and thrown away. The last entry was divorce, with a red checkmark beside it. She'd won, decisively. But the win felt more like lightness than triumph. Empty-handed, but free. Margaret got back about 30% of her money. Her self-reporting meant she avoided prosecution. When the two women from her dance group came to confront her, she admitted she'd been scammed and gave them what she'd recovered. Remarkably, the relatives who'd once scorned her had started to soften. May had lost most of her money too, though she'd been too embarrassed to apologize to anyone she'd recruited. She'd hidden at home until Margaret came twice, eventually breaking down with her in a private conversation that ended in tears. Both sisters quit the scam groups and rejoined the gym, this time voluntarily. Jason was, Nina reported, looking thinner, without video games, enrolled in therapy. He went home for Mid-Autumn Festival with mooncakes, ate a quiet dinner with Margaret. At the door, she told him, "Your life is yours now. I'm done managing it." Vivian didn't ask for more details. Her life had shifted forward. One winter weekend, cleaning out a box, she found a half-knitted scarf she'd started in her first year of marriage, an intended gift for Margaret, discarded after being criticized. She held it up and laughed, genuinely amused at her younger self's optimism, the belief that kindness alone could transform someone who didn't want to change. She bagged it for donation. The first snow of the year was falling outside. She poured herself a glass of wine, raised it toward the window. To Vivian, the one who loved without reservation. To Vivian, the one who crawled out of the dark. To Vivian, the one who finally learned to love herself first. Her phone lit up, a message about a project she'd closed that day. She replied unhurriedly and put the phone down. 3 years ago, she'd given up everything, thinking her peak was being married to the right man. Now she knew the peak wasn't standing beside anyone. It was standing on her own 2 feet, seeing her own view, living her own life. The snow fell faster. Vivian drew the curtains, turned off the light, and slept. No dreams. Or if there were, they were about tomorrow.